Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Omar Khalid. But today is the 15th of September 2021. These are the stories that will be under discussion during the course of the show. We will begin, ladies and gentlemen, with the issue of Junagadh and how it has been a contested state since 1947, despite the fact that the ancestors and those in Junagadh wanted to have accession to Pakistan. This had been decided despite that India consistently has tried its level best that Junagadh does not remain part of Pakistan but continues to be a part of India. And there was a certain conference also that was held very recently, in fact yesterday, on Junagadh and what needs to be done and how the Indian narrative needs to be negated as well as far as Junagadh is concerned. This is going to be our first segment of the day. Then, ladies and gentlemen, we will come to our second segment, and that concerns the International Day of Democracy. Today, the 15th of September, we are also celebrating the International Day of Democracy. This has been celebrated since the year 2008 by the United Nations. And of course, there are different parts of what democracy means as has been enshrined by the United Nations. What are the different elements of democracy? We'll be discussing that in our second segment. Then in our third segment, ladies and gentlemen, we will be talking about Prime Minister Imran Khan, who has had a telephonic conversation from the Russian President Vladimir Putin. Both leaders have discussed the latest situation as far as Afghanistan is concerned and as well as other matters as well. How important is this whole gamut of relationship between Russia and Pakistan, who have warmed to each other in the last few years? And how important also is the issue of Afghanistan for both countries? This will be our third story. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, we will end on a positive note where the Pakistan Stock Exchange has been awarded the Best Islamic Stock Exchange Award by the Global Islamic Finance Awards, otherwise known as GIFA, for the year 2021. PSX, of course, has been awarded because of its robust platform that provides Sharia-compliant products that include dedicated Islamic indices, equities, and debt instruments. This is going to be our final story. Let's begin with our first story of the day, and that concerns Junagadh, a state still contestable, a state that needed to be acceded to Pakistan in 1947 but was not done so because of India and its belligerence. More in the following report.
The National Conference on Junagadh Challenges and Prospects was organized in Islamabad by Muslim Institute for promoting an academic discourse on Junagadh while highlighting the history, the recent development on the issue, its status under the international law, and the role of community in Pakistan in a wider context. The conference was divided into 6 sessions: an inaugural session, 4 academic sessions, and a concluding session.
When there are so many intellects, they get together, so then it becomes a very powerful gathering. And my message is, of course, that I have given my life for the cause of Junagadh, and we will keep continuing our mission till Junagadh is, inshallah, it comes out from the illegal occupation of India.
During the independence and partition of British India in 1947, all the princely states were given an option to either join the Union of India or the newly formed state of Pakistan. Muhammad Muhammad Khan Ji III decided that Junagadh should become a part of Pakistan on September 15, 1947, but India forcefully annexed it. The forced occupation of Junagadh by India dishonored Article 26 of the Vienna Convention on Law of Treaties.
Pakistan and Junagadh have a treaty of accession. It's an international legal instrument. It still holds the field. It has never been cancelled. It has never been amended. It has never been recalled. Rather, it was implemented from a legalistic point of view. Consequent to the instrument of accession, there was a gazette notification within the state of Junagadh regarding the implementation aspect, and likewise on the Pakistani side as well. So that instrument still holds the field, and by virtue of that, the title to the territories of Junagadh vests in the state of Pakistan.
The speakers appreciated issuance of new political map of Pakistan by Prime Minister Imran Khan on 4th August 2020 that also included Junagadh as part of the country's territory for the first time. Historians, law experts, international relations analysts from different universities and research institutions and keynote personalities participated in the conference to present their research and analysis on the subject. Shabbir, PTV World, Islamabad.
Now, to talk more about Junagadh, we've been joined by Dr. Talat Shabbir. He's the Director, China-Pakistan Studies Center at the ISSI. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saab, an instrument of accession that has been signed decades ago still holds true, nevertheless has not been properly implicated or applied in principle. Junagadh is still not part of Pakistan. Why is that so in your point of view?
Thank you very much. I think this is a very important discussion that was held yesterday, and no less than Nawab of Junagadh himself was part of the discussion. I think in the beginning, when Pakistan came into being, in the map of Pakistan, Junagadh used to be shown in as territory of Pakistan in a box. Then it discontinued owing to some historical, underpinnings and other facts that state chose to follow a few policies. But as a matter of fact, I think right from day one, with September 15, 1947, when the treaty was signed, the Junagadh was part of Pakistan, and it should have been claimed as such. And I think it should have been discussed with the other issues that we have with India. It should have been part of the bilateral dialogues that we carried out with India. Junagadh should have been part of agenda of all the talks with India on territorial disputes. I think it's, though it's still not very late, and any country who has a rightful claim on a territory must pursue its claim, and this is a step in the right direction. And I think in times to come, Pakistan, not only Pakistan government, though it's a very right step by Prime Minister Imran Khan to have included the Junagadh as part of Pakistan's territory, this kind of conference, this kind of step should initiate a dialogue in civil society at national and international level, so that the world also knows what exactly transpired with regard to Junagadh, and it is part of Pakistan, and Pakistan should, initiate its claim over the territory of Junagadh.
Now, Dr. Talat Shabbir, of course, we know that the instrument of accession was signed. Then came the occupation by the Indian forces of Junagadh, and consequently, there was no plebiscite that was held in that area to decide whether the people wanted to continue to remain in India or want to accede to Pakistan. Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah also sent the case to the United Nations. Still, nothing has been done. Do you feel Junagadh remains another question mark, just as Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir remains as far as the United Nations is concerned?
Yes, I think it is. It is a question. It's a question mark on the just distribution or the planned distribution of territories between the two sovereign states. And not only that, it should be included in all the agendas in future of the international body like United Nations, and it should be pursued aggressively with the other world bodies and regional organizations as well as international organizations, that we have a rightful claim over Junagadh, and we must be accorded that claim.
All right. Now, the President Nawab of Junagadh, Muhammad Jahangir Khan ji, has appealed to our Prime Minister Imran Khan to become an ambassador of Junagadh and also to promulgate, of course, for the accession of Junagadh to Pakistan. How possible do you feel it is under the current circumstances and the belligerent attitude by India as far as any issue concerning Pakistan is concerned? We know what is happening with Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir.
I think the appeal made by Nawab of Junagadh, it has a symbolic value, and it must be done symbolically. That the way he asks that if you can become ambassador for Kashmir, you can also become ambassador of Junagadh. It's a rightful appeal by the Nawab of Junagadh, and I think this is the right time that Pakistan should push it further. And and other civil society elements in our country, other stakeholders also should join hands with Prime Minister as well as with Nawab of Junagadh for this rightful claim.
All right. Dr. Saab, when it comes to accession of Junagadh to Pakistan or the methodology under the current circumstances to pursue that, what are the actors that can work in favor of Pakistan apart from Pakistan itself, apart from our current government, our Prime Minister and the Nawab of Junagadh? Do you feel the help of friendly countries in the region could further boost this cause?
Well, yes. When I said that we must initiate measures whereby we persuade regional as well as international stakeholders over our rightful claim on Junagadh. We should also mobilize friendly countries like, some countries in the Middle East and even in the countries in Europe and Africa for this claim. I think this is being quiet on this claim, on this issue, is, I think, not right at this moment. And I think this is, when you say, is it right time to do that? I think it's very appropriate time to initiate such kind of thing where, you have some kind of strength also to convince people that, look, this is a right claim, and India has always been denying this, and look what India is doing in Kashmir. And India should, and secondly, this is the time that we also can expose Indian design of subjecting its minorities ruthlessly. And, there are various other claims, and there are problems in other states, and those problems can also be exposed with this. And friendly countries, Muslim countries, OIC must be, mobilized to help us in this claim.
All right, Dr. Saab, also this national conference on Junagadh that was held yesterday, how important are conferences such as these to aware the public, especially the youth of Junagadh, a lot of whom do not understand what the whole principle of Junagadh and the history of Junagadh is about, and B, create an awareness in the media as well and through the media to all the people in Pakistan and across the globe about how important it is for the people of Junagadh to also get their rights as was enshrined in this instrument of accession.
Of course, this has triggered a debate in Islamabad, and I think it will now move to all across Pakistan. And people will definitely know about, for example, some people talked to me about it yesterday when this conference was being held, that what is this Junagadh issue? No, first of all, we need to tell people, our own people, what was actually the issue and what was the content of the treaty. And how was it part of Pakistan, and how was this accession done, and what were the circumstances, and how it was denied. So there is a kind of awareness campaign that is required to be launched inside Pakistan, as well as in India, not only Junagadh, but elsewhere in India also. A kind of, it has to be known to people, maybe through social media, through mobilizing in the media, or through conferences, through seminars. The issue must be on the top priority of researchers, academics, and those people who would wish to, have this claim as accepted.
All right, sir. And also, finally, the accession to Junagadh that was negated by Liaquat Ali Khan Saab way back, and still is negated by Pakistan because of that instrument of accession that was signed those decades ago. How do you feel, apart from conferences such as these, apart from the fact that this case is in the United Nations, how do you feel the other methods or other methodologies could be employed by Pakistan in order to further this cause? We know we talked about the friendly countries, but do you feel there are other arenas where this could be worked upon?
I think, first of all, we must resort to political consensus or diplomatic means to resolve this issue. And, the instrument of law, the international law, you must have heard Bilal Saab, he amply described that Pakistan has a rightful claim over Junagadh. I think that needs to be mobilized, that needs to be initiated in I think, legal international, it must be initiated in the light of legal rights in international, legal rights in international law. And it must be taken to the international bodies, concerned international bodies, where justice can be given to people of Junagadh. I think we must mobilize all available legal as well as political diplomatic forums to bring this issue to limelight.
All right. Dr. Saab, and finally, I mean, speaking of India, our not so friendly neighbor, whether it be its involvement in Afghanistan to destabilize Pakistan, whether it be Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir and the way it is treating minorities, or whether it be this accession to Junagadh, there are so many issues that India is involved in. Why is there no hue and cry by the justice authorities or those that take up any issue at the very first instant? Why are they so silent as far as India is concerned?
This is very simple. India is a big economy, India is a big market, and in international politics, there are no norms, there's no morality, but the interests of states, take the priority. It's very, very sad to mention that people are butchered, people are raped, women are raped in Kashmir, people are denied basic human rights in Kashmir, and the world is just quiet about what is happening inside Indian occupied Kashmir. So it's a very sad story to tell. That world is just quiet and nobody is actually, and not only that Kashmiris, not only the Muslims, not only the Christians in India are suffering from this the fascist rulers of India, but their own Dalits are also victims of this policy, their policies. So there's a lot of human rights violation going on in India, and the world is quiet about it. The world is quiet about it because they see India as a rising country, shining democracy, shining India. So I don't know, what has happened to the morality of the world, and I think it's high time that world institutions, as well as world public opinion, as well as world international civil society, need to wake up to the fact that India is, committing human rights crimes. India is committing war crimes in some part of its territories. So they must rise up to the occasion and do some measure to stop India from doing it. I think this is world conscious at stake.
Of course, it is a world conscious that is at stake. Dr. Talat, Shabbir, thank you very much to have joined us, to have talked to us about all these issues that involve India, and especially Junagadh, that we are talking about now very recently, and also Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, and the rights of minorities, and so on and so forth. India is involved in so many things that are not part or parcel of any democratic country. So thank you very much to have highlighted that, sir. Let's come to our second story, ladies and gentlemen, and that concerns democracy. Today is the International Day of Democracy. Every 15th of September, the International Day of Democracy is held across the world. This was something that started way back in 2007, and the first International Day of Democracy was celebrated in 2008. More in the following report.
On 15 September, the world marks International Day of Democracy to highlight the importance of democratic political order for stability and sustainability of societies. The International Day of Democracy provides an opportunity to review the state of democracy in the world. The underlying spirit to observe this day is garnering global resolve to promote and strengthen democratic traditions and healthy participatory political systems. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres emphasized in a message in context of International Day of Democracy that democracy simply cannot survive, let alone flourish, in the absence of civic space. Antonio Guterres cautioned that the silencing of women, religious and ethnic minorities, indigenous communities, people with disabilities, human rights defenders, and journalists is an impediment to creating healthy societies. Democracy is the crucial ingredient to ensure provision of freedom of expression and other fundamental human rights. The essential components of democracy are inclusion, equal treatment, and participation, which are imperative to guarantee economic justice, peace, stability, and human rights. As the world is grappling with devastating pandemics, safeguarding democracy is more important than ever to create resilient societies. In a nutshell, observance of International Democracy Day depicts global resolve to ensure equal participation of individuals, social justice, and provision of fundamental human rights, because these guarantees are essence of a democratic order. On 15 September, the world marks International.
All right, to talk more about the International Day of Democracy, what are the principles that are enshrined under the United Nations as far as democracy is concerned, we've been joined by Ahmed Bilal Mehboob. He's the president of PILDAT, an organization that deals with democratic values. Thank you very much, sir, to have given us the time. Today is the International Day of Democracy. There's three important pillars: inclusion, equal treatment, and participation of democracy. How important are these three pillars to be accepted by all countries that call themselves a true democracy?
I think all these ingredients of democracy are very important. And what is important is that to look at Pakistan's journey of democratization and how Pakistan has performed in its journey, and look at where we are and what are the major accomplishments and what are the challenges which may be facing, and try to address those. I think this is a day which provides us the opportunity for this kind of introspection. So I think we should rather be focusing on that. And my personal assessment is that if we look around in the region, Pakistan, despite sometimes the weaknesses which we find in our democratic system, we find ourselves in a much better position than many countries in the region. India, which at one time we used to consider them a very sustained democracy over a period of time, I think in the past 5 years or so, 6 years I must say, the quality of democracy has deteriorated to a point that the international rating agencies have also noticed the downslide of democracy in India. And rest of the countries are not, I think there's no match. So Pakistan, in a relative sense in the region, is a good example of democracy. Although we have our weaknesses, but we at the same time, I think if we look at the assertiveness of our election commission, if we look at the enhancing independence of our courts, and most recent example of the election, which has taken place only a couple of days back, the elections to the cantonment boards in 41 cantonments of Pakistan. We have seen that they have been very peaceful elections. They have been accepted by the parties. And instead of blaming for external factors, they have started looking inward to see what are the weaknesses within the parties that they could lose out in some of the constituencies which used to be their strongholds. So all these things indicate that our journey towards democracy
is moving along the right path, basically. Sir, what I want to ask you in respect to a quote that says a healthy democracy requires a decent society. It requires that we are honorable, generous, tolerant, and respectful. How important is it to strengthen our society in order to strengthen democracy?
Now coming down to some of the weaknesses which we should be addressing as a society to make our democracy better democracy. It is democracy, but we should be looking at the quality of our democracy. And yes, tolerance is one area in which we need to work very hard, because we continue to see, and sometimes we have seen the upsurge of various political parties, various groups, when they are voicing their concern, their difference of opinion, they have been using a very strong language against each other. They don't perceive each other as opponents or rivals, they perceive each other as enemies. And that is something which we need to address. And I think if we let democracy continue, and so it is a self-correcting kind of a process. If we will allow democracy to flourish and work, then I think over a period of time, we will be able to learn and we will be able to inculcate the culture of democracy. So these things will happen over a period of time, which we are seeing at the moment deficient in us. Our political parties need to strengthen themselves. Currently, the political parties are not very organized, and they are the basic building blocks of democracy. So they need to strengthen themselves, strengthen their organization, need to become more democratic. They need to become less dependent on families. And at the same time, I think one of the most important institution of democracy is parliament. And sadly, Parliament, although is an institution which is most important, but it's not performing as it should be. I mean, on the legislative side, on the oversight side, this needs to perform much better. Yes, it's doing much better on the representation side. Uh, our elected members are spending a lot of time addressing the personal problems, local development problems, but I think they're spending less time within the assembly and addressing the issues of legislation and oversight. Well, I think these are the issues which need to be addressed to improve the quality of democracy in the days to come.
All right. So when it comes to democracy, also, one of the very important highlights is people's rights and the people's understanding of what their rights are in any society, in any democracy. Do you feel that people in Pakistan know what their rights are? And if not, how can we make them understand how they can work for their rights, work for any injustice that they could be involved in, and work to make Pakistan a stronger society, a stronger democracy?
I think what you have pointed at is an important point. I think people should be continuously made aware of their rights and responsibilities, both. They go side by side, they go hand in hand. So they should not only be talking about rights, also we should be talking about responsibilities. I was looking at some of the books which have been recently produced under the single national curriculum. Although there are a lot of room for improvement, but I've seen that there's a lot of emphasis on those in those textbooks which have been produced about the rights and responsibilities of a citizen. So I think if we continue to focus on that, not only towards young students, but also towards grown-up people, because there are many grown-up people who have not been able to go to schools. So they need to be, I think our media should be playing a role in educating them about the roles and responsibilities and their rights also as citizen of a free democracy, as a liberal democracy. So I think that is not something which we can accomplish in a year or 2 or 5. It is something which needs to be continuously done. As we have our educational institutions imparting education continuously all the time, I think we should be doing that in terms of imparting the civic education, making people aware of their rights, responsibilities, roles, and what they should be doing to make the country better, make it more democratic, make it more, careful about people who are marginalized, who are weak sections of the society, like minorities, like people who are like women, like children, like youth. So these are the kind of segments of society to which we should be addressing a little more attention than we normally do.
Now, sir, on the occasion of the International Day for Democracy, Antonio Guterres, the United Nations Secretary General, said, and I quote, "As the world struggles to emerge from the COVID-19 and its devastating consequences, we must learn from the past 18 months to strengthen democratic resilience in the face of future crises." Now, Pakistan is also going through another wave of COVID-19. We are battling it through different fronts. At the same time, we are also engaged in the fight against climate change and trying to make Pakistan more clean and green. How important is an administratively strong Pakistan in order to confront crises that could also damage democracy?
I think over the past 2 years or 18 months, Pakistan had been, I must say, with certain level of pride and humility, by the grace of God, one of those shining examples in which we have faced this crisis with a lot of resilience, with a lot of common sense, and with a lot of planning and coordination among the institutions, with the result that Pakistan has not faced as huge a crisis as many other countries in the region or around the world have faced. That is not only in the context of facing the pandemic, but also its after effects like shattering of economy. Despite the fact Pakistan is a very fragile economy, Pakistan has faced the after effects of this pandemic because of the planning, because of the hard work done by our institutions, especially our ISSI program, and our institutions like NCOC, where we have provincial and federal governments sitting together and looking at things on a daily basis and then trying to activate the reaction based on the information which they collect. And all this information, all this data is collected on a real-time basis, and the reaction is planned accordingly. So I think these are some of the good things that we have done, and we have shown resilience, and probably there are many countries around the world which can learn from us. Now we are currently going through the challenge of providing vaccination to 50% of our population by the end of the year. Currently, the speed and the pace with which we are going, it seems this is achievable. And if that happens, it was not 50%, I think 70%. I think it will be a major achievement if we are able to vaccinate 70% of the adult population by the end of the year. So I think these are some of the good things, but at the same time, it has posed some challenges to democracy. For example, our parliament could not meet as many number of days, as many number of hours as it had done before the pandemic had struck. So we were trying to find out the ways how committees could meet maybe online instead of meeting in person. We have not been able to find a solution, so our parliament and committees had been meeting in person. So this is a challenge which we should see that if the pandemic continues, then we should find ways how to let parliament and parliamentary committees work on an online mode instead of meeting in person. But that is something which we have not so far faced a crisis at the moment.
All right. So another challenge that also confronts any democracy, and under the COVID-19, this becomes even more important, and that is fighting disinformation, misinformation, media literacy and digital safety, working for media literacy and digital safety. How important are these four issues as well for a country like Pakistan that is surrounded by elements that are trying to give a wrong information about our country to the world through misinformation and disinformation?
Yes, I think this kind of response can only come when we involve the citizens of this country into the affairs of the state much more than we have sometimes done. So I think if we keep people informed, keep them informed of the challenges we are facing, if we bring most of the issues relating to policies, relating to challenges in our parliament, and we debate those issues threadbare, and through that it comes to the media and common people are informed, then I think we will not only depend on state to provide that response to the foreign countries and the foreign powers. Each citizen of this country who's educated, who is connected, who has got some digital connectivity, will be able to contribute towards those challenges. But I think the responsibility of the government is to keep everyone informed of what are the challenges and bring those challenges before the parliament for debate.
Another challenge, sir, that confronts the entire world, and that includes Pakistan also, is gender inequality and also gender-based violence that has increased under COVID-19. What measures do you feel that our government and our private sector need to work together in order to bring so that the women are empowered, so that the inequalities in our society end and democracy strengthens?
I agree with you. This is a grave crisis. It's not a crisis specifically related to democracy. Many of those societies where there's no democracy, they are also facing this problem. And many of those countries where quality of democracy is known to be better than ours, they're also facing these problems, although sometimes of a different nature. But the gender-based crimes or gender-based problems are being faced globally, as you have rightly said. So I think the best way to do is to improve the material which we are including in our textbooks, in our curriculum, in our school, what is being taught in the schools. So we should begin that from our schools. So again, I would refer to some of the textbooks which I've seen in single national curriculum. I think they have been There have been some flaws, but there have been some very important things concerning the respect for minorities, respect for the other gender, equality of gender. I think we should include these things and improve these things in our textbooks, in our school curriculum, and right from the class one, these things should be discussed and communicated to the young people. And as they go along and improve in every class, I think we should include a certain segment within the curriculum which relates to respect for the genders. And while those segments of the society which have not been to school and which may not be getting a chance to go to school, I think we should be using media more and more. And we should try to include that in our entertainment, this kind of messaging. Our dramas, which most of the entertainment channels are showing, they are very effective and very popular among the people, especially those people who might not have been able to go to school. Even they enjoy this entertainment. So I think we should include this kind of messaging in a very subtle manner in our dramas and plays and these kind of things. So probably it will be educating people about respect for the gender, a civilized behavior, what kind of attitude we should have towards towards minorities or towards the other gender. So I think it is a question of education and it is a question of smart use of the media.
All. Finally, sir, quick answer. Economic inequalities, economic injustices, do they strengthen or weaken democracies as well? And if so, how important is the role of the government and of the public as such in order to remove any such barriers?
Certainly, economic inequality deteriorates the quality of democracy. I mean, if your economy has produced very unequal terrain in the country, then there will be people who may not be able to participate in the democratic process. So I think what government and what our institutions like Election Commission should be doing is to look at the question of political finance and very strictly enforce the ceilings which have been employed on the expenses which people can make in the elections. I think so far we have not been strictly enforcing and strictly implementing that. If we can do that, which can enable people with modest means also to participate in the local government elections, in provincial elections, and strengthen political parties so that they can let those candidates be empowered and provide them the finances to contest election. So I think strengthening of political parties, strengthening of election commission, and election commission enforcing the political finance regulations much more strictly than it's currently doing.
Thank you very much, Ahmed, Bilal, Mehboob Sahab, President PILDAT, to have joined us and discuss details of the different aspects of democracy on this International Day of Democracy, that is the 15th of September, and how important it is for all democracies around the world to understand what democratic values are and to implement them in their different organizations and societies. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I'll end this segment with a little quote on democracy, which says, democracy is a theory that the common people know what they want and deserve to get it good and hard. Let's go to the last two stories. The first is about a telephonic conversation between Vladimir Putin and Imran Khan Saab, which of course figured Afghanistan as one of the prominent subjects. When it comes to Afghanistan, both Russia and Pakistan are more or less on the same point of view or stance, and of course both countries want stability in Afghanistan because both countries border Afghanistan. It is extremely important that stability comes into Afghanistan through its current governments, through its different policies, and both Russia and Pakistan are ready to help Afghanistan in order to further stabilize itself. When now Imran Khan Saab and Vladimir Putin exchanged views on bilateral cooperation, on collaboration within the framework of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, of which they are members as well. Also peace and stability in Afghanistan, like I've just mentioned, and also the importance of the international community to remain engaged in Afghanistan, and the stress on the fact that Afghan people should not be abandoned at this crucial juncture. Both also leaders invited each other to their respective countries. Let's see see when Vladimir Putin visits Pakistan. We'll be looking forward to that as well. So, of course, the importance of regional countries in all of this context, especially when it comes to Afghanistan, is pertinent. And it is heartening to see that the different world leaders are contacting the Pakistani leaders, our Prime Minister, our Foreign Minister, in order to keep Pakistan engaged in the future of Afghanistan. Let's come to our last segment, ladies and gentlemen. That concerns the Pakistan Stock Exchange that has won the Best Islamic Bourse Award. It is the Best Islamic Stock Exchange Award by the Global Islamic Finance Awards, that is otherwise known as GIFA or GIFA, however you pronounce it, for the year 2021. Because the PSX is a robust platform that gives Sharia compliant products that include dedicated Islamic indices, equities, debt instruments. Dr. Shamshad Akhtar, who is also the chairperson of the PSX, has said that it was an immense achievement for the PSX to have won this award. She said the winning of the award endorses that the PSX is heading in the right direction in terms of facilitating and providing Islamic capital market products and offerings. Of course, it is also good for Pakistan to see that the international organizations are acknowledging Pakistan for the different works that it is doing in different endeavors, in different spheres, and of course, this is just one of those. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to the end of today's newsroom. We'll see you, inshallah, tomorrow with new segments, stories that matter to you, to us, and to Pakistan. In the meantime, get yourselves vaccinated, follow the SOPs. Allah Hafiz.